Good afternoon. The Supreme Court en banc, during its session today, February 25, 2025, acted on the following matters. In the case of Sara Duterte versus House of Representatives et al., Vice President Duterte filed a petition for certiorari and prohibition with a prayer for a temporary restraining order, or TRO, seeking to nullify the fourth impeachment complaint against her. She claims the impeachment complaint violated Article 11, Section 3, Paragraph 5 of the Constitution, which states that no impeachment proceedings shall be initiated against the same official more than once within a period of 1 year. The court required the House of Representatives, its Secretary General Reginald Velasco, and the Senate to comment on the petition within a non-extendable period of 10 days from notice. In the case of Francis Leo Marcos versus Comelec, the Supreme Court on January 21, 2025, issued a TRO preventing the Comelec from declaring Francis Leo Marcos a nuisance candidate in the 2025 elections. The court ordered Marcos to show cause within 48 hours from notice why he should not be cited in contempt for his actions, which tend to bring the court's processes into disrepute or disrespect. Aquilino Pimentel III, Bayan Muna Chairperson Nery Colmenares, and former Bayan Muna Representatives Carlo Zarate and Ferdinand Gaite versus the Honorable Lucas L. Bersamin, the Honorable Benjamin E. Jokno, the Senate of the Philippines, and the House of Representatives. Petitioners challenged the validity of Republic Act No. 11954, or the Maharlika Investment Fund Act of 2023, and requested a temporary restraining order and/or writ of preliminary injunction. The Supreme Court impleaded the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, Land Bank of the Philippines, and Development Bank of the Philippines as respondents in this case. The Supreme Court directed them to file the respective comments within a non-extendable period of 10 days from notice. The Supreme Court also set the oral arguments for this case on April 22, 2025, Tuesday, 2:00 p.m. at the en banc Session Hall, Supreme Court Baguio Compound, Baguio City. The preliminary conference will be on February 26, 2025, 2 p.m. at the en banc Session Hall, Supreme Court Main Building, Manila. Next, the Supreme Court en banc during its session today, February 18, 2025, acted on the following matters. In the case of Victor D. Rodriguez et al. Versus House of Representatives, Senate of the Philippines, and Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin. Victor D. Rodriguez and several others are challenging the constitutionality of Republic Act No. 12116, or the General Appropriations Act of Fiscal Year 2025, or the GAA. Petitioners argue that the GAA is unconstitutional for failing to allocate mandatory funding for PhilHealth, unlawfully increasing appropriations beyond the President's recommendations, and allocating the highest budget to infrastructure over education. They add that the GAA is unconstitutional since the bicameral committee report on the General Appropriations Bill contained blank items. The Supreme Court set the oral arguments for this case on April 1, 2025, Tuesday, 2:00 p.m. at the en banc Session Hall, Supreme Court Baguio Compound, Baguio City. The preliminary conference will be on February 28, 2025, 1:00 p.m. at the en banc Session Hall, Supreme Court Main Building, Manila. Next, in the case of Catalino Aldea Generillo Jr. versus Senate of the Philippines. Generillo Jr. filed a petition for mandamus asking the Supreme Court to direct the members of the Senate to immediately constitute themselves as an impeachment court to try the impeachment charges against Vice President Sara Duterte. The Supreme Court required the Senate to comment on the petition within a non-extendable period of 10 days from receipt of notice. In the case of members of the Right to Know, Right Now Coalition et al. Versus Commission on Elections and the joint venture of Meru Systems Company Limited, Integrated Computer Systems, St. Timothy Construction Corporation, and Centerpoint Solutions Technologies. Members of the Right to Know Right Now coalition and several others filed a petition for certiorari against the COMELEC for its failure to act on their Freedom of Information request regarding the COMELEC contract for the lease of a full automation system with the Meru joint venture. Petitioners are also asking the Supreme Court to compel the Meru joint venture to disclose the said information. The Supreme Court required the COMELEC and the Meru joint venture to comment on the petition within a non-extendable period of 10 days from receipt of notice. In an administrative case, the Supreme Court dismissed Gerald Eric F. Sanchez, Clerk 3 of the Regional Trial Court of Cabuyao City, Laguna, for gross misconduct after he solicited 100,000 pesos from a litigant's mother in exchange for helping them find a lawyer. The Code of Conduct for Court Personnel prohibits court personnel from recommending private lawyers to litigants or anyone dealing with the judiciary. In another administrative case, the Supreme Court disbarred attorney Demosthenes S. Texon for gross misconduct and misappropriating his client's funds in violation of the Code of Professional Responsibility and Accountability. Attorney Texon had received from his client 134 million pesos in just compensation for an expropriation case, but only remitted 53 million pesos, keeping the rest as his attorney's fees and for the alleged senatorial campaign of former Justice Secretary Laila de Lima.
Ang basis natin dito yung violation ng anti-graft law. Nung una, ang sana inisip namin, yung violation lang ng revised penal code. Ngayon may nagsabi na sa dami ng nilabag na batas, bakit hindi natin i-file lahat ng kaso na po pwedeng i-file? Kaya napagdesisyonan ng grupo na pumunta rin dito sa office ng Ombudsman upang i-file yung mga kaso na anti-graft law. Yung una, siyempre, yung falsification ng legislative document. Dito naman sa Ombudsman, yung violation ng Section 3A kung saan ay sinasabi na kung merong kang ginawa na dihado yung gobyerno, no, at nawalan yung gobyerno, ay po pwede kang kasuhan. Yung pagsingit ng imagine 241 billion pesos. Ang laking halaga yan. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na typographical error yan na kinurek ng technical working group. Mahirap po, ang laki ng amount na involved.
Ito ba yung mga blanks?
Opo, yan ho.
Binilang po yun, parang kinumpit nyo lahat.
Marami yung blanco na yon. Ngayon, nung tinignan namin ano yung mga nilagay nila doon sa blanco, tinotal namin, umabot sa 241 billion.
Umani naman ito ng iba't ibang reaksyon mula sa ating mga netizens. Ayon kay Teresita Arnaldo, Bravo Supreme Court, it means gumagana ang Korte ng Pilipinas sa tamang landas. Pahayag naman ni Bev Ellen Rodriguez na sa tamang landas ang Supreme Court, hindi gaya ng sa House na akala mo'y sila ang Korte. At ito naman ang saloobin mula sa ating kababayan na si Virgie Luzada. Kayo lang po ang sandigan namin sa mga abusadong kawani ng Marcos administration. Please save VP Sara Duterte. Mga kababayan, feel free to comment below para maglabas ng saloobin sa balitang ito.